Good evening, everybody. How are you? This is Enrique Sanchez of Spanish United. In tonight's show, we're going to be discussing Hispanic children, mental health, and psychiatric drugs. Tonight's guest is Susanna Johansan from the Citizens Commission on Human Rights. Welcome to the show, Susanna.
Thank you very much.
Yes. Last week, we were having technical difficulties, so we're doing the show again. So let's just review what we were speaking last time.
Yeah, okay, so last time we were talking about mental health and the dangers of psychotropic medication and how a person, have other ways to feel mentally well. And you touched a bit upon the importance of healthy food and having a healthy lifestyle. And then I was talking about stressing the importance of people educating themselves on the violations of human rights in the field of mental health. And then because we're talking about human rights in general, I also touched upon the concept of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, which are the 30 human rights laid out by the United Nations for all people. Mm-hmm. I think they kind of summarize what we were talking about and kind of the need for the Spanish community to, know these things so they can stand up for themselves.
Yeah, because right now with what's going on with Hispanophobia, which is very rampant, a lot of Hispanics have become more insular, and they are afraid to reach out or even to discuss things because of the stigma of many Hispanics being seen as undocumented immigrants, even the ones that are native citizens. So there needs to be approach to deal with mental health and proper nutrition in a way that they can understand. Like, not too many people know this, but Hispanics have one of the highest hereditary diseases and health problems after African Americans. Like, especially in Southern California, especially like in the city of Santa Ana, which is in Orange County, close to Orange County. I mm-hmm. saw a report that a good 40% of Hispanic children are obese, which is pretty bad.
Yeah, that is very bad. And so that's why it came in. We were talking about the importance of, Hispanic people in general, educating themselves on what are the things that are nutritious, they're still not too costly. Because one thing that you brought up is that unfortunately, a lot of the food that's available is like, high in sugar and processed.
Correct.
And unfortunately, that sets up like, a vicious circle.
Correct. Yeah, a lot of the food that a lot of people consume, a lot of people don't realize that they're heavily subsidized by the government, so it makes it cheaper, like all of the processed stuff. While foods that are organic or non-GMO, they're more expensive because they're not subsidized. So people are forced to make a decision, either going with food that is cheaper and it's not the best, or food that is better for you but it's much more expensive. So a lot of Hispanics, since they are essential workers, a lot of them do not make a living wage. They have to ration whatever money they get. So a lot of them, they buy products that are not the best, and unfortunately over time it develops into hypertension, blood disease, cancer, and in many cases it also affects memory and mental health.
Yes, you're right. Like, unfortunately, a lot of people get prescribed then psychotropic medication when that is actually not the solution, and proper nutrition and health and exercise is way more the way to go. Mm-hmm. And you then touched upon that, yeah, it's important that people have the information on basic food that is not processed, that is still, good for you and is, not costly. Mm. And then, so in regards to the Citizens Commission on Human Rights, it is basically a mental health watchdog that is, exposing psychiatrist violations in the field of mental health. For example, psychiatrists prescribing drugs for profit, for their own profit, and people then being the victims of that because, understandably so, they trust the psychiatrist. And that is very, very sad because they, portray themselves as, being the experts in mental health, but really they're just giving a drug that is dangerous for people, have a lot of horrible side effects. And I was urging your listeners to go onto the website of Citizens Commission on Human Rights.org, short CCHR.org.
Okay.
Yeah, and if somebody has been the victim of, psychiatric abuse, they can file a claim on the website.
Okay. Okay. And also, I also wanted to touch base and how can Hispanic children be aware of their human rights being violated at school? Like, again, with many parents that are either not be able to be there or a lot of them don't speak English, like what materials can be given to Hispanic children? Let's say, for example, their human rights and civil rights are being violated at school. Let's say they're being forced to go to like another classroom which is not in the best condition, because I've seen that when I was growing up. A lot of Hispanic children, they would be clustered together like in another room which was not the best, and they were getting the worst type of education. So what would you suggest or recommend on that aspect?
Okay, good. So on that, so that switches the subject onto more like, more on a scale of human rights for any single person. So then that switches to the Universal Declaration for Human Rights. So universal simply means it deals with the whole world.
Correct.
Declaration is simply like an official statement about something. And in this case, it is the United Nations official statements about the rights that every person have simply because they live on this planet and are human. And it is 30 exact human rights that everybody has simply because they live on this planet and are human. And this was written by the United Nations as an follow-up to handle the incredible, tragic things that happened during World War II. It was written in 1948 under the directions of Eleanor Roosevelt. She was the wife of the US president at that time.
FDR.
Yeah, exactly. Franklin Delano Roosevelt. And basically this document lays out the rights that everyone have in the entire world. And she said, and this is very, very important, and this is kind of explain why I'm talking about this. And she said, where do universal rights begin? In small places close to home, so close and so small that they cannot be seen on any maps of the world. Yet they're the world of the individual person, the neighborhood he lives in, the school or college he attends, the factory, farm, or office where he works. Such are the places where every man, woman, and child seeks equal justice, equal opportunity, equal dignity, without discrimination. Unless these rights have meaning there, they have little meaning anywhere. And that is just a very important statement because it makes it possible for anyone to take responsibility for their own human rights and also force them in on the people in their immediate area. And I wanted to give a few examples.
Sure, be my guest.
Yeah, so for example, the first human right is that we are all born free and equal. And it says that we're all born free, we have all our own thoughts and ideas, we should all be treated in the same way. So in your examples about the school, it says we're all born free and equal. So it should be equal treatment in the schools. And even one of the human rights is actually the right to education. So everybody has a right to an education and not being like, getting an inferior type of education.
Mm.
There is also a right to a nationality, which is one of them. Another right is the right of social security, which says we all have the right to affordable housing, medicine, education, and childcare, enough money to live on, and medical help if we are ill or old. And it goes on to you even have the right to play. You have the right to do your own things on your free time. You have the right, there are rights for workers to have a fair wage. And all this is covered in this document that pretty much, I can't say all, but pretty much all countries in the world signed to agree and follow. And so the website they need to go on for this case, earlier I talked about, mental health, and that is CCHR. In this case, in regards to their human rights as a human, the website is youthforhumanrights.org.
Okay.
And the materials is also available in Spanish.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah.
That's perfect. Yeah, because like I said, I just feel that ever since the last administration has come and went, I just feel that Hispanophobia and racism towards Hispanic people in general has really gotten out of control. And Hispanic people, like I mentioned in the last time that we spoke, that are the largest minority in the country, but yet are the most invisible. And they are the most abused, the most mistreated, and the most neglected. And I just feel that that's something that needs to be addressed and needs to be brought out into the open. We cannot continue to ignore it any longer.
Yeah, and it's very unfortunate because they have such an incredible culture, such a very rich culture, and a lot to contribute with. Also very hardworking individuals. A lot of Hispanic people I met have an incredible work ethic. And they very much also take a lot of care of their families and really want their children to do well. So they set a great example in terms of taking care of their families too. So those circumstances are very unfortunate. And the thing that I can bring to the table in this discussion is just urging every Hispanic person in the United States to educate himself on their own human rights, and also demand that other people in their own schools and families and neighborhoods follow these human rights.
Yeah, because like I said, when people don't know what their rights are, people will tend to use that against you, and they can really hurt you. It's like the more you know about your rights, the less likely people are to harm you, because you know the law. They can't find loopholes to harm you.
Exactly, like knowledge is power.
And that's one thing that I always stress with my organization, Spanish United, is emphasis on education. Not only is it power, but it's also the passport to the future. It's like a lot of Hispanics don't realize that the reason why they're not getting the better paying jobs, they're not having many opportunities, a lot of doors are closed, also has to do is that they don't either have the education or have the skills. And slowly that is changing. That especially like the third, fourth, fifth generation, they're slowly moving up, but I feel that they have a long way to go. And I think that the only way you could have a healthy, productive society is that there has to be changes at home. Meaning that if people have enough resources to cover their basic necessities like food and shelter, utilities, that takes away stress, and at the same time, it also takes away stress from the parents, from the children, and then the children are able to move forward.
Yeah. There's obviously also a language concern, because if you have English as a second language, but on that, I have that too. English is my second language. I came here from Europe, from Sweden.
Hmm.
And one thing that I have used a lot is just keep clearing up words.
Hmm.
Even like words that I hear, which are, very common to Americans, I still make sure I understand them. I never feel embarrassed to ask about a word I don't understand. Because if you keep hearing words you don't know the meaning of, you blank out and you don't get the concept anymore. So that's my own personal advice to other people who moved into America.
Well, yes, it's very important to try to assimilate. And I think one of the things that America should do, like other countries don't do, I mean, that America should do that other countries have been doing for a long time, is that when immigrants go to settle there, what they do is, like in Canada, for example, they will set you up with a sponsor depending on what your language group, religious group or whatever, and they will help you get assimilated by giving you classes, learning the customs, and it helps people assimilate quicker. That is something that is lacking here in the state.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's a very good point, because things are not the same. The culture is slightly different. I mean, also the beauty of United States and here in California is that it's so multifaceted with so many different people and cultures. But yeah, it's better like having a support system, but that can also be something for, Hispanic United to, create that support network maybe,
Well,
or
yes.
having Latinos who are more established in the American society help new ones.
Yes, that's one of the things that I'm doing with my organization, Hispanic United, is that we are still a grassroots movement, but as we continue to grow and to expand, one of my goals and visions is that I would like to create like a support system, like you mentioned, to help Hispanics that are like recently immigrated, or even those that have been here for a long time but have been like invisible, to help them better assimilate, because the only way people are going to succeed in this country or any other country else in the world is that it's expected for you to be assimilated, because once you assimilate, you're able to have more opportunities. When people self-segregate and have that language barrier, not only it does harm to them, but also creates friction. So one of the things that I want to do with my organization is minimize frictions, not only with other groups, but also with other Hispanic groups, because people assume that just because everyone speaks Spanish, that everyone is the same. Not everyone has the same customs or beliefs and
Yeah.
whatever. Like people from Mexico are different from people from Puerto Rico different people from Argentina, and so on.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. No, that can definitely become a confusion for people who may be like, Native American, like, or I hear from America that they think all Hispanics are the same, but I do know that they might speak the same language, but the dialects are different, the accents are different, and their cultures and their background and how they view things is of course different, because each country is that way.
Exactly.
Yeah. So yeah, no, this is what I wanted to bring to the discussion, is simply on human rights and urging everybody to find out for themselves what their own human rights are at youthforhumanrights.org. And also to kind of summarize this is that each one of these 30 rights has a little short video that goes with it. So it's a very powerful message, and it is also aimed at educating youth on their human rights. So it's very simple and it's very easy to understand it. Very powerful.
Awesome. Excellent.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you very much for your time, Susanna. You've been very helpful. Before we go, are there any questions, comments, or final thoughts?
I just want to wish, the best to every person in this country to be able to flourish and prosper and, achieve their own goals and aims, no matter from what country they are. I really wish that all people in this country be more unified and be stop any, being, so divided. And that is really my wish for all the Hispanics, to learn more on the human rights, because I think they can be a really, really great and amazing force of people for this.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
All right, then. Thank you so much for your time, Susanna. As soon as I finish with the show, the conference, I'll definitely send you the recording on a link.
Great. Thank you, Enrique. Good luck.
Have yourself a good night.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye bye.